We're looking at leadership transition in charities. Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, and I help people who care about sustainable financial independence harness the power of life and health insurance. Our guest today is David Hutchinson. David, what do you do when you're not being interviewed?
Well, I'm the president and CEO of Hutchinson Group, Inc., which is an executive search firm serving the charitable sector in Canada.
We're talking about leadership transition, and this is because of those nasty boomers. They keep retiring. What's the status with boomers these days?
Well, it's interesting because boomers are now 68, so the first 3 years have gone past retirement age. We're seeing using U.S. statistics, we're talking about 10,000 boomers a day turning 65. First, as I say, the first 3 years have already come and gone, so we've got another 16 years of boomers turning 65. And yet the talent pool coming behind is literally probably half the size, and didn't go into charity. They weren't persuaded or convinced or directed towards the charitable space, and so this is creating a major talent issue for us.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about, but I remember when I was going through university, etc., going into the charitable sector wasn't even one of those things we thought about. We knew that we'd give money to charities, but we'd never really thought about who worked there.
Right, and many of the boomers have spent the majority of their career, those at least that have gone into the charity space, have been there 35 and 40 years. Obviously some exceptions to that, but the reality is that most of them have spent a long-term career in that. Whereas Gen X, not being directed towards it, didn't necessarily view it as a career step. Didn't always pay as well as it does today. Wasn't perceived as a good career step necessarily. So we were directed into business or IT or science or law or you name it, but charity just didn't sort of come up as one of those options.
Do charities have good resources in order to recruit new people?
Some charities do. Larger charities have some advantage that way. They are able to be more competitive on a compensation basis. They can offer a wider range of opportunities for people to pursue careers in, whether that be leadership roles or general management roles, fundraising roles, program side. There's all sorts of advantages for some of the larger charities. Some of the smaller ones that don't have the resource base financially will struggle to find the right talent that they need and to be able to be competitive.
Okay, in cases like that, do they need to invest in the people they already have then?
Yeah, depending on who they've been able to attract and bring into the organization, it's always great if you can invest in leadership development or mentorship. These are some of the trends that we absolutely have to address as far as the sector is concerned. If we don't, I think we're going to suffer for it. We won't have the talent that we want in leadership. We won't have the talent that we need in fundraising. We may not even have the board talent, who are oftentimes, well, always typically volunteers in the charitable space. We need to invest in that talent as well. So it's a huge issue facing the sector today. The boomer generation retiring, yes, is one element of that, and the Gen X group not necessarily pursuing careers in that is certainly an element. But we have a great advantage with the millennial crowd coming behind. By sheer numbers, they're larger than the boomer generation.
Okay.
And they tend to have interest in social impact or social purpose organizations or charities from whether it be environmental or social justice or you name it. They find it a compelling opportunity. Which is great, and I'm encouraged by that, and we need to develop the leadership that's coming from that demographic.
Right, and that seems to be the challenge, is that because they are so young, where do they get the leadership experience?
Exactly, and so millennials are probably hitting 33 or 34 now. Some of them have gotten decent experience, those who've been in the marketplace a little bit longer, but we really do I think we owe it to them and to the organizations that they'll work for to actually invest in their careers. The charitable space is about people, and
Right.
if we're going to invest in program dollars and donor dollars to help a cause and something that we're passionate about, it needs to start with our own people who are delivering those programs or raising money for them or giving senior leadership to organizations that are making an impact in our really right across the country today. It's one of the largest employment sectors, the charitable space in Canada. We have some amazing talent across the country, and yet it's still, we don't have the kind of resources that we would like, that the corporate and private sector may have. But we also do have Canadians are typically generous people, and we have some great donors across the country, and they're a stakeholder group to help our charities be successful. So major donors, corporate donors, and the rest of us who give $20 a month to our favorite cause, we need everybody.
Right. We still need those people to work in the charities also.
Yeah.
Do charities generally have transition plans for their leadership in place?
I'd like to say yes. My sense is that probably many of our charities in Canada today don't have a defined succession plan or a transition plan for leadership. I think some of the larger or perhaps better resourced organizations may have some elements of it, but a true succession plan or a leadership transition plan, that can take 2 to 3 years, especially when we're talking the executive level. It takes time to organize the process that an organization and its leadership will go through, including the board of directors. It takes time to find the individual ultimately that is going to be the replacement, whether that be an external replacement or some of our internal potentials. And then there needs to be a time of transition where the leadership is handed off, and maybe that doesn't have to be long-term necessarily, but it would be good if the new person coming in has the advantage of some transition time with the former leader. It's good for the board, it's good for the staff in the organization to see a good handoff. And that's what we're really looking for in a succession plan, is what does it look like to hand the baton so that we don't drop it and so that we can keep running and so that our organizations continue to thrive and are successful.
Yeah, how do donors feel about how charities are being run? Are they satisfied with how transitions are taking place, or is it something they don't think about?
Oh, I think the donors are especially major donors, are thinking about it quite a bit. We're starting to hear the terminology of venture philanthropy. And that,
what does that mean?
well, I think largely that is individuals who've been successful financially in some other stream of life, probably not in the charitable sector.
Right.
They bring a certain amount of strategy and innovation and creativity, but they also bring financial resources that perhaps some people wouldn't have access to. And so a strategic investor is like a venture philanthropist. It's somebody who's going to try and make a real difference, get a return on investment, but it's not necessarily financial, it's social. So what we call it social ROI or whatever the social purpose organization might be that they're supporting will definitely have advantage from that. But I really believe that donors today, especially those that see their donations in a strategic way, are going to be perhaps more activist. You know, we sort of see activist investors in the stock market and in publicly traded companies, but I think there's an element to which we might see that in charity as well, because when somebody's giving $50,000 or $500,000 or $5 million,
right,
they want to know that it's going to be spent well. They want to know that yes, that it will be used efficiently, but so that it gets used to its greatest impact. And so what does that look like? Well, I think they're going to want to be engaged in that. They'll want to see a business plan. They'll want to recognize that the leadership that's in place at the charity, both at the board level and at the senior management level, knows what they're going to do if they were to receive a large donation from these individuals. This is not to say that the $20 a month donor or the $50 a month donor is not important. Absolutely, they are the bread and butter of the charity across Canada today. But strategic investors, those people that we're calling venture philanthropists, I think we're going to see a strong sense in which they want to know that leadership is there to support the kind of giving that they're able to.
What kind of activity should take place then to get new leadership ready?
Yeah, so when we look at the marketplace today, and we see the boomer generation starting to make these transitions out of their organizations, and whether that happens at 65 or 67 or maybe even 70, that's not as important as what the process looks like to get them through this transition. And it's not just them, it's their organization, because transition is the most sensitive time in any organization's life cycle, as well as in the individual's life cycle. We want to honor good leadership as they exit the organization. We want to honor the staff and the employees that remain after they leave. And we also want to recognize that beyond that, there are much or more numerous stakeholder groups, people that receive value from the program or from the research or from the education, people who are the donors, their stakeholder group. The public at large, if people are being helped, in a sense, we can stretch the stakeholder groups to be numerous. It all comes back to leadership, though. And if we don't have the right leadership in place to address the needs of an organization, the cause isn't going to be addressed, whatever that cause might be. There's employee morale can take a negative shift with the wrong leadership. Donations can drop. If we have a misstep in leadership, donors might just say, wait, I'm not going to give until I know who the new leader is going to be. I'm not going to invest the kind of money that I would normally do until I know that I've got a trustworthy partner in the new senior executive. And in the absence of good leadership, I would suggest that donations could tend to be negatively affected from that perspective. So leadership transition is an enormous process that every organization will go through. So let's plan for it. I mean, we talk about succession planning. We have to stop giving lip service to it. We actually have to sit down and create succession plans. And as I said earlier, that could take 2 to 3 years to go through that process. It doesn't have to.
Right.
But if you want it to be successful and thorough and process oriented so that we're all happy with the result at the end of the day, it takes time. So I think those are some thoughts around what the succession planning process should look like.
What's your key message for the people watching today?
Talent. I think the key message facing the charitable sector today, not that the corporate and private sector is not facing it, they are. They have a deeper pool of money to draw from. They have a larger pool of talent to choose from. You name it, law firms, banks, financial services groups, they're off at University Day picking the best of the student body. Why aren't we out there as charities doing the same thing? Why aren't we finding the best talent possible to come and help our cause? Now, we're up against some issues. Obviously, we don't compensate as well, typically, in the charitable space. It's getting much better, and it's better than it's ever been. I think it could even improve, but we're doing much better than we have. So compensation is an issue. But we're looking for highly educated people today. We're looking for, in some cases, master's degrees, perhaps in some cases even PhDs, depending on the work of the charity. So it's about attracting talent, but it's about the cause and how do we communicate it? What are we addressing by it? Is it compelling? Will we attract the right talent to the things that we're trying to promote or solve or get rid of? We want to get rid of poverty. Well, how do we do that? It's gonna take talent. We want to have better education systems, or we want to have better health care. It's going to take talent. And it takes investment. And I think people recognize that it takes investment, but we have to really, I think, when you look at the charitable sector and the talent needs that it has today, again, boomer generation leaving, largely spent their career in it. Gen X didn't really go into it, so we've got some elements to which the talent pool is thin already, and a great resource in our up-and-coming leaders, but we need to develop them and give them the opportunities to lead, exactly the way they do in the corporate and private space. But I don't think we do it soon enough or well enough in the charitable space. McKinsey released a report not too long ago, and it talked about the investment in leadership development. This is U.S. dollars, so, and I think it was just in the U.S., but corporate and private sector leadership development was $12 billion. And in the same year, in the charitable space, it was $400 million. So a huge disparity between the investment in leadership development. And so, the big stick that I carry around today or the sticks that I carry around today are succession planning and leadership development and mentorship. And it all comes down to talent. And I think if we get the talent question right, or the talent solution right, we can address the financial needs more easily by creating great organizations through great people. I think really that's what we're looking at.
You raised some deep points. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, through the web is great,
Okay.
hutchgroup.com, or certainly my telephone's on the website, so give me a call. I'll be happy to chat with anybody.
Thanks very much, David.
Thank you, Pramod. Great to be here today.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?